Hi all, welcome to Liquid Earth. I'm Age, and today we're going to look at the tone curve in Lightroom Classic CC. So the tone curve is found just below the basic panel, under the develop module here, and I think the best way to describe how effective the tone curve will be is to demonstrate it on a series of images that I've got ready at the bottom here. And there's various things that we can do, like we can add some contrast and some punch to images to make them pop, but we can also remove color casts and selectively adjust skin, lightening or darkening. And if used in conjunction with the basic tools or some of the tools that we have at the top here, you can really make a difference to your images. So let's give you a quick, brief introduction to the tone curve. So you might be familiar with the histogram, where on the very left you've got all your dark pixels, and that goes into shadows, midtones, highlights and the lights, and overlaid on top of your tone curve you've got the same histogram here. At the very left are all your darks, and that goes into your shadows, midtones, highlights and whites, and you can demonstrate that by choosing this dark point and moving it to the right to make the image dark, and the same for the whites, moving them to the left to make them lighter. Now let's start with the basics. A lot of the time we would just add this S-curve by clicking on the histogram, and we're under the RGB, which is this white icon here. If you click, hold and drag, you create these points, and now we've increased the whites and decreased the darks, so you've gained a little bit more contrast to your image. So you've gone from this image to make it pop a little bit more. Let's go to the next image here. So with this image, it's very dark. And what we can do is choose the RGB again, and this time we can choose the adjust. And if we select this little tool here, we can hover over the image, and notice the point on the tone curve moves when I go into the lights and into the darks. And we can click, and we've added a point if we wish to. I'm going to double click to remove that. But what we're going to do is we're going to highlight a darker area over here. We're going to click and hold and drag up, and that creates this curve. This is the point where I've clicked, and it creates this smooth transition so that you don't get that awful transition from lights to darks. You can click and add your own points. So here I'm protecting those white areas, and we can click and hold the point and drag further if we wish to, and make any other adjustments that we want on the image. And we've gone from this image here to this image, and in this case we've only used the tone curve. Let's go to our next image here. So we've got lots of brights, not so many darks in this particular image, so maybe we want to do something a little different. So instead of using this adjust, I'm still in the RGB, which is this icon. I'm going to move the whites a bit darker. I'm also going to add a lot of darkness and depth into the darks, and maybe the midtones, I don't want them dark down too much, so let's increase that here. And just with the tone curve, we've gone from this washed out image to adding a lot of pop. Okay, let's do something different. So this image has a big color cast. Now if you was to go into our white balance, often you can remove color casts with the white balance, but actually it doesn't matter what we do here, we're going to struggle to remove that color cast. So let's reset these by double clicking on white balance, and let's show you how we can do this with the tone curve. So you've got the RGB channels. Let's select red. So with the red you can move out of red into cyan, and that does a reasonable job, but actually there's a better way. Let's choose the greens. So with the greens we can move from magenta into greens, and we can add some green into our image, and then we can choose the blue, and we can go from yellows to blue, and by using these two and increasing them, we've actually removed the red from the image, and we've got a much better looking image. You can see the before here, very red, and the after, where we've solved that problem. So this image is slightly different to the other image. This time we're going to decrease the reds, and we're going to decrease the greens, because notice what happens is it gives us some green into our image. Now we've got rid of a lot of the cast, but actually the exposure is too light, and the vibrance needs to come down quite considerably. and look what happens to our image. We can see the before and the after. Sometimes you might just want to add an effect. So in this image, taken at night of course, we've got this orange cast with the street lamps. Let's choose our blue, increase the blues quite significantly, and then you've added a different effect and feel to that image very quickly. In this image, let's choose the RGB, go into our adjustment, click on the lighter part of the clouds and move up so that we gain some adjustments there to our midtones, and then feathering into the blacks and the whites. We can protect the highlights a little bit here. Notice what's happening to that very bright star-like light there. We can change that by protecting the whites, and actually I'm going to protect the blacks a little bit as well. Now notice what happens as soon as I move this, that curve really starts to move. So you can protect it, just add these points to it here so that you can just protect that a little bit, and then you can make these adjustments. And then you can tweak however you wish on your image. And if we look at the before and after here, made a big difference to that image. In this image, I want to highlight this area here. So I'm going to choose my RGB, click on an area of the flower by pressing the adjustment again, click and drag up so that I get this to where I want it to be. So this pops out a little bit now, but I've brightened the sky up. Now I can't increase the blues here because it's going to increase the blues for the whole image. So instead I'll go to the RGB panel. Let's choose color, blue, and then I can increase the saturation, decrease the luminance if I wish. And I might even want to add some highlights back into my image to make it pop out. And if I wanted to, I could then choose the brush, come down with my exposure and take some of those highlights down, or come down with the highlights, etc. and just take some of these highlights down over here. And then we've got the before and the after. Okay, the next image here, RGB. I'm going to adjust this image by clicking on a mid-tone of the skin, clicking and dragging up so I get that to the brightness that I want. Let's protect the whites a little bit here, and I haven't got many darks, so I'm going to protect the blacks a little bit, and then I'm going to use this in conjunction with the basic panel. So here I'm going to add some contrast manually here. I'm going to take the vibrance down a little bit because it's not that natural, and then I'm even going to add some dehaze to the image to cut through some of that hazy appearance. And there you've got the before and the after. So another image where we can quickly adjust the exposure by pressing on the adjust tool, clicking on the skin and dragging up. Again, I can protect the whites, and the darks are fine as they are. And another thing you can do is you can add a matte fill to your image by taking the black slider and dragging it up. So no longer do we have pure blacks, but we've moved that into the dark greys, and you create this quite popular matte effect to the image. Okay, let's choose this image here next. Now this image is quite washed out, and we can very quickly adjust that by adding quite a strong S-curve. So moving the lights lighter and moving the darks darker. And here's the before and the after. Next image, you're going to use a combination here. So we're going to add some contrast by going up with our lights, down with our darks. But we're also then going to go into our tools. Let's add here a graduated filter. We're going to make that a little darker here. Take out our clarity. We don't want any clarity in the sky. And then let's add a little bit of vibrance to the image here. Maybe make it a tad brighter. And we've gone from this image to this image very, very quickly using a combination. Now the final image is a Milky Way shot, but you can't really see the Milky Way. The only reason I knew it was there is I was using an app called Photo Pills, which is absolutely excellent. It has this augmented view where you just point your phone at the sky and it shows you exactly where the Milky Way is. So I took this long exposure. Now notice the histogram here, completely void of any lights. So we can take this point, drag it all the way over to the right, and look what happens to our image. We've gone from this to this very quickly. Now we can start to see the Milky Way here, but if you're used to editing Milky Way pictures, you'll know that actually if you add some clarity to the image, then you'll create really good effect on that Milky Way. But I'm going to use the brush, so I'm going to double click on my effects just to reset the whole of the brush, pull the clarity up, and then we're just going to paint on this Milky Way here, and you can see what effect that has. And then we can add some more contrast. Now you've got to be careful with the contrast, so look what happens if I add contrast, it really ruins the image. So we can add a tad of contrast, but I wouldn't go too far on that. The other thing you can do is add some dehaze to the image, which does make a bit of a difference. Again, do it very subtly, and then you've gone from this image to this image very quickly. Well, that's it guys, I hope that was useful for you. If it was, give me the thumbs up, subscribe if you want to see more of these. I'm posting these every single week. Thanks again for watching, I really do appreciate it, and I hope to see you guys next time. Take care.